Welcome to this special from Windows on the World with a very special guest, Jerry Marzinsky, a retired psychiatric practitioner of over 35 years experience in dealing with psychotic patients, people who are suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. We've done many shows on this phenomena and they are all available in an article. And the article is called Demons Are Real. So let's get on with this special for tonight. In our previous shows, we've talked about the voices that are heard. Negative entities are behind this phenomenon and not random hallucinations, as Jerry found out over his varied experience with patients who were suffering from paranoid schizophrenia who had been imprisoned and were also being held in large psychiatric institutions. Now, we've gone into a lot of depth with this subject and we're going into a much more fascinating area for anyone who's seen the previous shows. And if you haven't seen the previous shows, please do, and look up Jerry's work at jerrymarzinsky.com. Today, we're going to be talking about the characteristics of these voices, how they actually operate, because these things seem to work to a template, to a pattern, which is astonishing for most people who think that people are hearing random hallucinations and suffering from a hallucinatory experience. But these voices are cognitive and they're consistently negative and they have an interrelationship with the person who they've invaded. And this all goes into the history of demonology, and it's a massive subject that does go back as long as mankind has walked the earth. So we're talking about something very deep here, but we're going to be talking about the characteristics and real case studies today from Jerry over 35 years and what his patients have actually said to him when he was trying to help them get rid of these voices. So without too much more exposition, we're going to get straight into it, and I'm going to bring in Jerry. Hi, Jerry. I've just done a brief introduction about our other shows and your work and what we're going to be talking about, basically the characteristics of the voices. In the previous show, we talked about the patterns that these voices seem to run. They seem to work to a template almost. So we're going to go into that tonight. First of all, give us a brief introduction for people who may not have seen you before, although most of our viewers have.
Well, yeah, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I've worked in the mental health system in the United States my entire life. I've worked in every facet of it: mental health centers, emergency room, state prisons, the criminally insane, private and public psychiatric hospitals. So I've been through all of them. You know, every single type of mental health treatment that they've had out here, I've worked in those situations. And I'm going to tell you what I've seen from my perspective, because they're not going to let you into these places. You can't walk into a psychiatric hospital and say, listen, I want to study schizophrenics. They won't let you in. Same thing with the prison. You know, I've never, ever seen a researcher in any of the frontline places I've worked, ever. Not once. You know, they just don't go there. They won't allow them in. So Big Pharma and the psychiatric mafia, have they taken over the medical and psychological education system? And they did this back in 1910 with the Carnegie Foundation, where Rockefeller and a group sponsored the infamous Flexner Report, which shut down medical schools that didn't teach pharmacology. So they're basically saying, you teach pharmacological medicine, or you can't issue licenses. Right? So at that point, they took over the mental health system, and Big Pharma ran it from there. They didn't care about finding a cure. They wanted to push pills. Now, the psychiatric mafia insists that these things are hallucinations. But if they run well-founded, unswerving patterns, they can't be hallucinations. Something is controlling them. And the first one that came out was negativity. They're consistently negative, derogatory, insulting, abusive, and destructive. What holds them on that path? You know, I don't know. I've been in trouble with psychiatry for asking patients about what their voices are saying, what they're doing, how they behave, and been pulled up before medical directors twice and told, these are hallucinations. You're making them worse by asking the patients about them. You're reinforcing their reality. So what they've done is they've shut out any investigation by controlling the medical schools and teaching that these things are hallucinations and that they're not worth studying. Mm-hmm. So when I got to the state hospital, you know, here's all these patients hearing voices, and I would ask staff, you know, what are these things? They're hallucinations. Everybody believed they were hallucinations. Nobody was curious about them. You know, they all believed they were hallucinations, and the only way to treat them was with drugs. And that's what they did. They dished out dump trucks full of drugs, which cured nothing. It cured absolutely nothing. What it did is it reduced the intensity of the voices, but it didn't get rid of them. So our drug-fueled mental health system is nothing but a friggin' merry-go-round. They bring them into the hospital, they drug them senseless, they release them, they can't stand the side effects of the drugs, they go off them, they come back again, and each time the mental health merry-go-round fleeces the taxpayer and the government of thousands of dollars, and it just goes round and round and round. They're curing nothing. In the meantime, these drugs are rotting out, they shrink the person's brain and rot out their peripheral nervous system with long-term use. So these are some of the most dangerous drugs that are used in the medical system today. Anybody who works with schizophrenics can see these patterns for themselves. All they got to do is talk to the patient and ask. They're right there. You know, they're right in front of their faces. All they got to do is look at them, but they won't even do that. You know, they're more concerned with pushing their drugs. And between psychology or psychiatry and Big Pharma, they're making $474 billion a year just selling antipsychotic drugs. So that the patterns that now these come from hundreds of schizophrenics. It's not just one or two. They're all saying the same thing. Nobody's talking to them, but if they did, this is what they would be told. So the voices are consistently negative. And the question you have to ask is, what holds a hallucination in a consistently negative pattern and doesn't allow it to go random like all other hallucinations? You know, it doesn't fit the pattern. Second thing is they're anti-religious. They don't like people going to church. They don't like them reading the Bible. They squirm at the 23rd Psalm. Patients have told me that they react to the 23rd Psalm like worms thrown on a hot frying pan. So why would a hallucination do that? Why would a hallucination react negatively to anything religious? You know, they foster and create negative emotion. So virtually every thought that they put into the person's head is designed to create a negative emotional reaction. So these things they don't have an energy source of their own. They have to get it from us. You know, we're the cats.
Yes. So they're extra dimensional, but they manifest themselves in thoughts which invade people. And they obviously harvest these people's energy in some form or other. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. And obviously, this just creates havoc on Earth. And it's been talked about for thousands of years. Indeed, the stories of the Watchers, those who inbred with the daughters of men, were killed off. And this is the Book of Enoch, and their evil spirits were buried inside the Earth. And a real long history of this stuff in every religion in the world and every belief system in the world. And of course, Jesus was alleged to have rid people of evil spirits.
23 times.
Yes, yes. So we're talking about a phenomenon that is not peculiar. It's something that's been around since man has walked the earth. So yes, it would be really good now to go into some of these examples that we've been looking at.
So one thing that psychiatry and psychology and medical systems don't understand is that these voices don't belong to the physical universe. They belong to an energetic universe. There is no time there. There is no space there. There is no matter there. You know, so a schizophrenic can move from one country to another, and the voices show up right there. They play by different rules.
Well, I think that's really interesting, the way thought forms work as well, because I did experience what you've just been talking about in a case that we both know about. And this thing that was attached to the person I was trying to help did indeed attack me from thousands of miles away. So I can back that up. But I suppose we're now going to be talking really about the experiences that these people have had and how they related them to you and how you tried to step in and the results that they got. It's absolutely fascinating because this is stuff that nobody's ever really talked about before.
So let me quickly finish up the patterns. I mean, they foster and create negative emotion. They energetically drain their victims. So after the voices attack, the people are drained. Sometimes so drained they can't get out of bed. They get louder after sunset, which is very odd. They get louder when ignored. So psychiatry said, take your medicine and ignore the voices. They won't be ignored. They get louder. They foster consistent self-destructive behavior. They foster isolation. They demand the attention of their victims. They maneuver for increasing control over their victims. They gaslight. They manipulate perception. They have complete access to the person's memory. They demand that the victim don't tell anybody else about them. They're consummate liars. They lie about everything. You can't trust anything they say. They consistently steer their victim away from anything that might generate joy. They manipulate feeling without speaking. They short-circuit reason. They pass themselves off as thoughts belonging to the victim. So I've had a number of patients ask, who are you? What are you? And they would say, we are you. We are you.
Yes.
What the voices do is any interference, they go nuts. They don't want any interference from their draining energy from those victims. I mean, they have to understand that they're not their thoughts. They don't belong to them. They come from another place. So they destroy positive self-concept. They fill the victim's mind with negative thoughts about themselves and others. They attempt to pull the victim away from consensual reality. They use confusion as a means of instilling negative suggestions. They're averse to anything positive or beautiful. Any attempt to inform the schizophrenic that the voices are energetic parasites will trigger a volatile reaction from them. So they don't want people to know that. I took extensive notes from patients who were very interesting to me. But the first thing people need to understand is these voices are not hallucinations like the psychiatric mafia insists. The psychiatric mafia and Big Pharma have not done no research into the voices at all. They've just arrogantly got up on their footstools and proclaimed these are hallucinations because we say so. You know, the high priest of psychiatry. And then they teach that in medical schools. And then they teach that the only thing that can do anything about the voices are their toxic drugs. And they're brainwashing generations of students with this lie.
An interesting point, Jerry, which I read in one of these case studies, was that you were very careful in telling these people how to deal with these voices because you are explaining to this fellow, well, don't fight them because that's what you've got you into trouble. You know, so if you violently oppose them in your own head, it's worse somehow, right? Because they will retaliate.
They'll retaliate, and then there's a battle. So it's best if you don't know anything else to do about them, is just let them go through. But that's a lie program. You know, I'd say 85 to 90%, maybe more, of what they say are lies. They don't care about the person at all. What they want to do is generate that negative emotional energy because they can't get it anywhere else. And you won't see any schizophrenic animals. You don't see schizophrenic animals. You see them act weird because of rabies or some physical disease. But this is not a physical disease, no matter how hard psychiatry has tried to make it one. Because
but also, with animals, sexual abuse doesn't really happen. They have a way of dealing with trauma. So if they've been chased by something, they go through a period of shaking, which just releases the whole thing, and then they just get on with their lives again.
Yeah,
so they don't imbibe these things mentally the way humans do, and the way that abusers can manipulate people. That you don't get that in the animal kingdom. You get fight or flight, and basically if they get away, then that's okay. They recover from it, and they recover quite quickly. So this idea of what goes into people long term is extremely important, and these traumas that build up, and the abuse and the conflict within invites these entities into the person, and that can be through drug abuse, as we've talked about, especially methamphetamine. We talked to George Degarty, who managed to cure himself. So go back in the archive and look at that. It's in the article that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. But yes, carry on, Jerry. I just thought I'd come in with that.
We're taught from the time we're young kids that all our thoughts are wrong. That's not right. That's very wrong. You know, psychology and psychiatry don't go into where thoughts come from, what they are. Thoughts are forms of energy. You know, they have a specific frequency, just like light has a wide band of frequencies. Thought does too. It goes all the way from high frequency to low frequency, and these beings live in the very low frequency range. It's like going down into the Marianas Trench, you know, in a bath escape and looking around. These entities dwell in that frequency, and they're very real in that frequency, despite everything that psychology and psychiatry say. So, you know, I started asking this guy, how did this start off? He lowered his guard a little bit when he saw that I was interested. Now, so those therapists out there, when the patient actually senses that you're interested, they'll tell you more. If they think that you're judging them as a lunatic and you have nothing to say, they're going to shut you off, and they can feel that. You know, they can feel that. They'll shut you off immediately. So he said they started telling me to do little things. And I've heard that before. I've heard patients say, well, when they first started off, they told me to pick up a pencil. They told me to sit in this chair. They told me to go over here, go over there. It was almost like somebody buying a new car, you know, testing it out, you know, to see what they could make it do, which I found very interesting. And I asked them, well, did they eventually work up to telling you to do bigger things? I said, yes. What were the things they worked up to telling me? Well, they mostly told me that other people were out to hurt me and to watch out for other guys. Okay? So this fellow was hanging around with gangsters. He was in prison. And they don't call paranoid schizophrenia paranoid for nothing. One of the biggest things the voices do is make the person paranoid. And
to isolate the victim, presumably, to isolate them further.
Isolate them further, make them paranoid. So there's no interference with their extracting that negative emotional energy. And that's one of the worst things a schizophrenic can do is isolate themselves, but that's what they do. They lock themselves in the bedroom. They cause a big stink. Nobody wants to deal with them. They do crazy things. They say crazy things. They get violent. They lock themselves in the room, and everybody's like, yeah, I'm glad he's in the room. And that's what they want. They don't want any interference from family members. They want to break up families. They want to break up girlfriends. They want to break up all relationships except for them. So you'll find these guys isolating themselves, and just you'll hear them in the bedroom talking, screaming at the voices, arguing with the voices. That's what the voices want. They want no outside interference. The first thing they'll go after when psychiatry prescribes a drug is they'll tell the patient, you know, he's poisoning you, and they'll point to the side effects. You know, and lots of patients will go off those drugs for that reason. So, one of the things they say is, you know, people are out there after you. They're watching you. They don't like you. They're talking behind your back. They'll say all these things to generate that negative emotional energy.
I think many people can actually relate to that, Jerry, because paranoia is not a rare thing. I mean, most people at some point will go, I wonder if they were talking about me when I was out of the room. And sometimes it happens to everybody. And the thing about it is that when you escalate these things and these voices take over, I think it's a very important point that we've made a few times as well, is most people at some time will have these negative voice intrusions. Yes. It's not uncommon. You'll get a thought out of nowhere and go, God, where did that come from? I would never have thought to do anything like that. That's not a natural thought. It's not in my normal process of thought. Something just comes in to do something really extraordinarily bad. And I think most people have had that. But when these voices actually get into the person through this abuse and through persistence, when they find their victim, basically, they harass the victim until the victim is completely worn down. And I've seen the results of that. So yes, please carry on.
Yeah, they wear them down. They don't allow them to sleep. And, you know, what's so tricky about it is that they come across as the person's thoughts. I mean, they don't sound, a lot of times, they don't sound any different than the person's regular daily thoughts. The intention is very different. You know, yes. What they're telling the person to do is very different. But they sound just like the person's regular thoughts. Now, the trick there is, you know, we're all taught that whatever thoughts come into our head belong to us. It's just an assumption.
Yes.
You know, it's a very wrong assumption. You can see it for yourself as you can step back and watch your thoughts come into your head. Right? Yes. So if you're the one watching, it can't be the thoughts.
That's right.
You're the person listening to and watching those thoughts. And that's the same thing with schizophrenia. If they can step back and watch those thoughts, they realize they are not those thoughts. They want you to believe that their thoughts are your thoughts. And the patients who've asked them, who are you? What are you? They would say, we are you. You know, so they don't want people to be able to differentiate those thoughts. Their survival depends on that. So what psychiatry usually tells them to do is take your medicines and ignore them. So that's what he said. If I ignore them, they get angry, they get louder. That's a very common thing that happens.
And if you confront them, it's worse.
Well, yeah. If you do anything that interferes with their draining your energy, they get mad. They start getting more animated. They don't want you doing anything to interfere with their draining of your energy. The voices don't want you interfering with what they're doing. Suicidal thoughts are one of the biggest anxiety provokers there is. It's not easy to kill yourself. And thinking about it is very anxiety provoking. So they're constantly putting in these suicidal thoughts. And schizophrenics have a suicide rate of 3 to 5 times that of the normal population, mostly because these voices are telling them to kill themselves. And it generates a massive amount of negative emotional energy. So where things get schizophrenic with psychiatry is they will insist these voices are hallucinations. But if they find out that a patient on their watch is considering killing themselves, they don't want to be saddled with that. So all of a sudden those voices become very real. They lock them up, fill them full of drugs, and don't let them out until they tell them, I'm not suicidal anymore. You know, so they're saying one thing, but they're doing another. You know, but as soon as they went off the drugs, they came right back with a vengeance. So those drugs don't cure anything. Psychiatry doesn't know the cause of schizophrenia. They don't know the cure, and they won't look at the voices because they're hallucinations. Who's going to study a hallucination? They got it covered pretty well. They've got the truth blocked, so the average man can't find it.